Sorry for not responding last night, I passed out. But yeah, I'm okay with necro stuff if it's not that bloody. But I'm totally against killing for sex. I only do it with roadkill.
Boy ain't right.
How dare you, sir? How dare you slander me? I don't fuck animals to death. I fuck roadkill.
Before we get going, due to recent discoveries, there's significantly more reasons to suspect that Kero the Wolf is not guilty. I'm choosing my words carefully here because there's a difference between innocent and not guilty. Innocent is the implication of free of guilt, especially with the lack of knowledge thereof. Blameless, harmless in effect or intent. And innocent, I would imagine, if I may be so bold, would be, is this individual innocent in intent or knowledge in this circumstance of the allegations of necrophilia, animal abuse, sexual animal abuse, so forth and so on. As for not guilty, the simple understanding of being guilty is being found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And it seems certainly an issue of concern for Kero the Wolf is there's been a video that's addressed some of the VPN issues as well as some of the screenshots.
It's gone. Now, notice a little key up there. What does that mean? It's a VPN, Parker. Kero is done. Hashtag Kero is over party. Shut the hell up, you dumb You're just assuming. You're drawing a conclusion when there's no conclusion to be drawn. It is possible to use a VPN and also be hacked. It is possible, believe it or not. A VPN will not prevent your Telegram account from getting hacked. A VPN is used primarily to mask your location, and it can be used to fake your location. So it is possible that Kero could have been using a VPN to make it appear like he was from Iran. He could have been using the VPN to fake the fact that he was hacked, but just because he could have done that doesn't mean that that's what happened. That whoever exposed these screenshots had a blank white canvas behind, because look at that. Parts where it's white has zero artifacting. If this whole image was the same resolution throughout the whole thing, you would expect the same type of artifacting to be throughout the entire image, but that's not the case. I believe that this person stitched together every single screenshot that was presented here. Because look at that. You can make a perfect selection there and drag a 23 October 2016 and just paste it in here, type up some text in Microsoft Word, square select it and drag it in here, you know? It's very convincing until you look at it like this. And it's very clear that it looks very doctored.
Personally, it would be relieving to believe Kero the Wolf is in fact not responsible for murder, sexual abuse, and defiling of animal carcasses. I never thought I'd be able to make a video where I would say any of that unironically, but here we are. After seeing the video with the most recent information, link down below, I'll try and include a card here. The gentleman with the frosted tips successfully argued perfectly that some of the artifacts of the screenshots combined with the screen cropping and the ability to play with some of the dates on some of the posts leads up to Kero having plausible deniability. That said, I still feel I have some thoughts I'd like to share down below, and unlike Mr Metokurs' video, where he tagged it on at the end,
just basically dumped upon them. Some are taking up for him, starting hashtags and doing videos in his defense. Other people are just outright attacking him and saying that he is completely guilty. Time is really going to be the only indicator that's going to validate one or the other, of which of these is actually real. But there is one thing to take away from all of this entire disgusting clusterfuck of what's going on right now. Those videos that those people have watched, the pictures that were shared back and forth, that shit really does exist.
This remark here...
Here, I do things a little bit different. Take a look.
Oh, he definitely does things differently. I can confirm that. He does it differently than pretty much anybody on the face of the earth, anybody with a moral fucking compass.
At the start was less maybe, maybe not, and feel free to call me autistic, but this sounds like a declaration of fact. Jim's been doing a really great job with a great many things recently, but with all due and total and complete absolute respect, accusing someone of animal abuse of a lethal sexual variety, among other things, combined with the fact that Kero the Wolf himself did suggest that he would seek legal remedy for some of these accusations. Recently, Mordecai, or Venus, as a bun, the individual who log dumped all this information had their Twitter first set to private, then disappear. I would encourage everyone who might have jumped the gun with Kero to reach him directly, big and small. And now onto the video. So recently, Mr. Metokurs put a video called A Man and His Dog, judging by the Twitter post Jim had about a furry humping a dead deer. I assumed it was going to be silly shit, lols would be had. Shit would be posted, you'd laugh, I'd laugh, and everyone would all go home happy. Now, if your response is, Anthony, how can you be so fucking retarded? I mean, what were the odds that Jim would have been able to put a video out there, and the crux of said video would have been about a furry, rape, death, and a potential sex cult? Okay, that's not fair. There was no talk of religion in the video. Forgive me, because the point of this video is to try and speculate to fill in the gaps, to try and make sense of arguably one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, or discussed about, I imagine. Let's look at that for a moment. Let's talk about how I and some of you have been desensitized by the internet over the years. There was a website called VCL, Furry tossed me once upon a lifetime ago. I'd say about a good decade and a half, with various furry images, and I'd notice nude pictures. There would be a sexual pose, and then there would be a picture of gore, decapitation, then another nude picture, all drawn, mind you, someone being eaten, and as I clicked through it, it dawned on me, why would anyone mixing gore with their porn? And when you have that moment of clarity on the internet that you can't unlearn, oh, this is all porn. I think a fair amount of us have grown up on horror movies, and I think it's safe to say, or hopefully most of us don't get a chubby while watching Saw. That's been my default perception in life. When Metokurs did a video called POZitivity, basically a video of decadent old green tech stories of people gifting or giving STDs to willing or unsuspecting people, my default and what sustains my sanity and helps me sleep at night, that this only exists on the internet. And even if it did happen from online to offline, it would be so rare, so unimaginable, unlikely to happen, that the odds of you meeting someone like that would be improbably fucking unlikely. I mean, would Linkara really want to fuck an undead green M&M dressed like a Muppet?
Especially when you're younger. The teenage years and the adult years will bite you in the ass later down the road. And if you're not careful, you'll go from being the guy that does really amazing comic book reviews to the guy that wants to get fucked in the ass by a green M&M at a dead gay Muppet gangbang.
Can you picture him saving up a year for a high-priced escort to cosplay as something like that? I mean, it's funny, but I have my doubts. On the other hand, one of my biggest doubts about this story at first was, why would a guy with 100k subscribers go into a chat using his channel name to talk about such horrifying experiences? I can think of two examples of people from the brony fandom that are somewhat similar, but not entirely, thank God. Toon Critic and Dark Edge. Toon Critic got busted trying to lure an underage girl to meet up with him at a convention, as well as sending lewd images to partake in sexual online activity. Clearly, there's more than a couple other things, but the point is, he did all these things while under his Toon Critic guise. The difference being with Kero the Wolf, in this case, didn't seemingly need his name to impress anyone. I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong down below, he was in a private room sharing these stories of having sex, killing and continuing to have sex with animals, among other activities. Unless there are so many groups in furry around this interest that they needed a big name to trade on to get recruitment up. Again, I'm just speculating to try and make sense of this insane story, which, if that's the case, holy fuck. The second example was a brony by the name of Dark Edge, brony dev Dr. Fowl. The channel is gone, unfortunately, now. By the longest time, a lot of my friends knew he did fanfiction that included Fulicon and necrophilia, and the common conception was, oh, that's Dark Edge, he's just being an edgy bastard, he just wants to scare fuck with normies. Later on, he got caught either ERPing with or attempting to ERP with two 16-year-olds and a 15-year-old, all about the same time, as well as sending lewds of himself to some of, if not all of those girls. The reason I bring this up is this. Do you see this? When talking about Kero the Wolf, Mordecai, the gentleman who got this ball rolling and bringing all this to light, as well as the deleted pseudonym account, how much and how long did these and other people know? If any of these things were potentially legit, which due to recent accusations it's highly doubtful, who participated and who simply knew things? I'm really interested in knowing about this. It's concerning if any of this was true, which it now seems dubious at best, that there might be individuals who could keep quiet about that. If there's even a chance, I would like to encourage anyone who knows anything to please speak up. But here's the whole thing, and I might believe Kero had friends who didn't know he allegedly molested and murdered animals. I mean, if this indeed went on for years without surfacing, from what limited experiences I've had with dealing with degenerate individuals, terrible people have more noticeable and more public warning signs. In Toon Critic's case, he was a thief, a beggar, a whore, a lech, and way more beyond a pedophile. In this story about Karo, assuming if it was in any part legit, again, it doesn't seem to be the case here, there must have been enough to speak up about that no one has ever done so. Like many of the other fandoms, there must have been maybe some kind of bro code. I've seen it in the brony community. Hell, I've been swallowed up from it on occasion. I've seen it happen in the commentary community. I can't prove it, but I'd bet you dollars to donuts it exists in the anime analysis community. Most of all, we've sure as fuck seen it in the skeptic community. Based on all of that, based on these allegations, which again do seem somewhat debunked, how did this shit go on for years and years? You have to ask yourself, how many people were encouraged to shut the fuck up? Now I want to mention something about Jim's style, and for the majority of the time, Jim is just fucking around. Whether it's Jim taking the piss out of Linkara, a skeptic, or even my stupid ass. At least from my own personal experiences, I sure as fuck can't speak to Crouten T or Mundane Matt. There doesn't seem to be any long-term damage most of the time. When we're not laughing at a fat, dumpy, fucking dressed up looking waiter from Applebee's. Every now and again, there's a story about some vindictive asshole drilling kids' teeth without anesthetic.
And this is a consistent complaint of people who've brought their children to him. He gives them fillings, silver fillings, and then paints them. Now, I'm fairly certain that dentistry has standards about painting things in somebody's mouth. You would figure there would be health concerns about doing that, especially after digging around and scraping around and bleeding gums. The last thing you want to do is put some kind of paint into somebody's mouth because you're too cheap to use a better kind of filling.
Or it's about an abusive father figure who's selling his family's misery for money on YouTube.
Boy tends to wander sometimes, and we were worried about him.
So basically, they wanted to go on vacation and not bring him with, and their solution to that was to tell 750,000 people that he smeared shit on the wall, and then tell Keemstar that he clogged up the toilet. How does that make any sense to anyone? How would it be less embarrassing to tell people that you smeared shit on the walls than you clogged the toilet up? Toilets overflow all the time. You get too much tissue paper in a toilet, it overflows. That's not embarrassing. You know what is embarrassing? Having people think that I am some kind of fecophiliac, that I can't stop smearing shit on things. But it doesn't matter, because neither the shit smearing or the toilet clogging are apparently true. No, they just didn't want to bring them with. So the videos are real, but now they're kind of real, but now they're fake. Cody smears shit on the walls, but no, he clogs a toilet up, but no, we just don't like him. They can't keep consistent. And all these changes happen within a 24-hour period.
Between the videos that are mocking Europe for sucking and Isn't America Great, that intro.
People say, Uncle Kage, why do you drink? I drink to dull the pain.
Give the man a drink. Can you really blame him for being a near alcoholic at this point? I would be too if I were a part of the furry fandom. Poor Kage there has spent years going around to different conventions and gatherings and promoting the exact same message. Don't embarrass the fandom.
Seemed to confirm my suspicions this was going to be less Ross and more Doug Walker, or at least more Kurt Eichenwald when you look at Jim's series of videos, where even if the shit show is tragic, it's likely going to be more funny than anything else, and I found myself a bit more rattled and horrified because it's stories like these that make you take a second take. For every 9 Lolicons out there who stop at the printed page, maybe there's one who doesn't. For every 8 macrophiles who don't swallow goldfish, maybe there's 1 or 2 who do. The comforting theory is that the gore picture is just there as a troll amongst the porn, because seriously, who would jerk off to something like that? Suddenly, there's a chance that the urban myth slides into maybe not land. And on the other hand, Jim, I don't blame him. I didn't personally confirm the images myself, whether they were legit or not. I don't suspect I ever will either. Just on the other hand, just the other day, I saw a discussion between Dapperton and some Furry, and where Dapperton, a centrist from the skeptic community, accused of being into children sexually due to vor pictures featuring Tails from Sonic, a character that's, I believe, around 8 or 10.
You may not know this, but Esoteric Entity is into vor. Vor is the sexual attraction to people eating people. Yes, he's really into that. And vor is the sexual attraction of that. He says he's into vor, so yeah, that means he's sexually attracted to this. Now, the weird part, I mean, it's already weird, right? I mean, he's into people eating each other. But the weirder part is that all of his vor contains children.
Here he is asking Tails from the Sonic series if he has ever eaten a human other than Jay. But this isn't limited to Sonic 4 either. He also enjoys seeing Lucario eating a baby Umbreon and a Mimikyu. Now keep in mind, this is a sexual fetish, and that Umbreon doesn't look like an adult. I'm just saying, if you have a sexual fetish and you depict a character as a pretty underaged character there, you're kind of doing something wrong there. Oh, and talking about the Umbreon suspiciously looking underaged, well, it turns out that he actually has a thing for lolly furries.
And lollies, by the way, are underage children.
Oh, and while we're on the topic of Sonic, it probably needs to be reminded that Tails is also 8 years old, so Esoteric, what the fuck are you doing?
Now, whether this Furry is more Digibro or more Ross, I can't tell you that. I'm not a doctor. But after hearing stories like these, my only advice I can give you is just take your time to watch your friends a little bit more closely. If something comes up that would freak you out if it came out of a stranger, maybe consider speaking up. When I listened to this story, I tried to fill in the gaps on why and how in my head. How does a series of people get together and de-evolve into something like this? And I'm picturing maybe a middle class gathering of suburbanites getting together, starting off maybe a little innocent enough, a Mason-like gathering. Maybe it just starts off with friends getting together over drinks and sharing stories, maybe sharing some drugs, sharing some oaths, bonding, and next thing you know, you're snorting or smoking bath salts or whatever it is you fucking do with that crazy shit. And one person in the group is dragging a dog or a cat into the woods to be sexually ritually sacrificed. I do keep coming back to the cult idea. Someone had to take the lead on this one, because like it said in the Metokur video, whether Karo had done this or not, there was a gathering of furries who did murder animals. I haven't confirmed that footage myself. I did reach out to the individual on Twitter who had. I haven't heard back yet though. I imagine someone talked about getting back in touch with their primal roots, back when men were more animals than human. I've been in calls where Digibro would start to freestyle about Lolicon, and I would feel like you couldn't speak up, that you don't correct the Tom Cruise of the cult. And that's what I imagine this Kero individual. And when I first heard about this, when I heard about these allegations, the mental image that I got about Kero was just that. Of course, things have changed now. That's just my 2 cents. Now, if you excuse me, I do need a drink. One more thing before I go. I think Jim sold fear here today, and I'll tell you this. I bought it. I'm fucking horrified.